What started as a routine late-night interview turned into television chaos when Ben Stiller and Jimmy Kimmel engaged in an explosive confrontation that ended with security escorting the beloved actor off set. The tension was palpable from the moment Ben Stiller walked onto the Jimmy Kimmel live stage. What should have been a lighthearted promotional appearance for his latest directorial project quickly devolved into one of the most uncomfortable moments in late-night television history. Audience members later described feeling the awkwardness even before the cameras started rolling, with witnesses noting that Kimmel seemed unusually agitated during the commercial break. "Welcome back. We're here with Ben Stiller," Kimmel announced, with his trademark grin, though those familiar with his mannerisms could detect something off in his delivery. "So Ben, I have to ask about your new movie, but first, I'm curious about something else entirely." The comedian's tone carried an edge that immediately put Stiller on guard. Stiller, dressed casually in a navy blazer, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Sure, Jimmy, what's on your mind?" His response was measured, professional. But there was a wariness in his eyes that suggested he sensed what was coming. "Well, you've been pretty vocal lately about certain political issues," Kimmel continued, leaning forward with what appeared to be genuine curiosity, but felt more like an interrogation. "And I'm wondering if you think celebrities should really be weighing in on complex policy matters that, let's be honest, most of us don't fully understand." The question hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Stiller's jaw tightened slightly, and he took a measured breath before responding. "I think everyone has the right to express their opinions, Jimmy. That's kind of the foundation of democracy, isn't it?" Right, Kimmel nodded, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. "But don't you think there's a difference between having opinions and using your platform to influence millions of people on issues where you might not have all the facts?" The audience began to stir uncomfortably. This wasn't the playful banter they'd come to expect from Kimmel's show. Stiller's publicist, sitting in the green room, reportedly grabbed her phone and started typing frantically. "I'm not sure I follow." "Your logic here, Jimmy," Stiller replied, his voice remaining steady but with a growing undercurrent of irritation. "Are you suggesting that because I'm an actor, I shouldn't have political opinions? Because last I checked, you spend a good portion of your monologue every night sharing your political views." Kimmel's laugh was sharp and humorless. "That's different. Ben, this is a comedy show. People expect political commentary from me. But when you tweet about foreign policy or economic issues, aren't you potentially misleading people who look up to you?" "Misleading them how, exactly?" Stiller's composure was beginning to crack. "By encouraging them to think critically about the world around them? By suggesting they research issues and form their own opinions?" "Come on, Ben," Kimmel pressed, his voice taking on a condescending tone that made several audience members visibly cringe. "We both know that's not how it works. You post something, and thousands of people just accept it as truth because, hey, Ben Stiller said it. Don't you feel any responsibility for that influence?" The accusation hit its mark. Stiller's face flushed, and he leaned forward in his chair, matching Kimmel's aggressive posture. "So let me get this straight, Jimmy. You bring me on your show, supposedly to talk about my work, and instead you ambush me with some half-baked theory about celebrity responsibility. What's this really about?" Kimmel's mask was starting to slip. "Entirely now. Maybe it's about accountability, Ben. Maybe it's about celebrities who think their fame gives them expertise in everything. And maybe," Stiller shot back, his voice rising for the first time, "it's about a talk show host who's forgotten the difference between comedy and confrontation." The tension in the studio was now electric. Camera operators exchanged worried glances and the show's producer could be seen frantically gesturing from the wings. What had started as an uncomfortable interview was rapidly spiraling into something much more serious. "You know what, Jimmy?" Stiller continued, his patience finally exhausted. "I came here as a courtesy, to talk about a project I'm passionate about, and instead you're treating me like I'm some kind of political pundit who needs to be taken down a peg." Kimmel's response would prove to be the point of no return. "Listen, Ben, Kimmel said, his voice dripping with barely concealed disdain. Maybe if you spent less time on Twitter preaching to your followers and more time actually understanding the issues, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The words landed like a slap across Stiller's face. The actor's eyes widened in disbelief, and for a moment the studio fell into complete silence. Even the audience seemed to collectively hold their breath, sensing they were witnessing something that would be talked about for years to come. "Excuse me?" Stiller's voice was dangerously quiet now, the kind of calm that precedes a storm. "Did you just question my intelligence on national television?" Kimmel, either oblivious to the line he'd just crossed, or simply too committed to his attack to back down, doubled down with reckless abandon. "I'm just saying, maybe stick to what you know. Comedy, directing, acting. Leave the serious stuff to people who actually study these things." The condescension in his tone was unmistakable, and it had the effect of a match thrown into gasoline. Stiller stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the studio floor. "You've got to be kidding me, Jimmy. You're sitting there, on your comedy show, lecturing me about staying in my lane while you spend half your airtime doing political monologues." "That's completely different, and you know it," Kimmel shot back, also rising from his seat now. The pretense of a friendly late-night chat had been completely abandoned. "I'm a comedian commenting on current events. You're an actor pretending to be a political analyst." "Pretending?" Stiller's voice cracked with indignation. "I have a degree from UCLA. I read extensively. I consult with experts before I speak. On complex issues. What's your qualification, Jimmy? Being funny?" The audience was now openly uncomfortable, with several people shifting in their seats and looking toward the exits. This had gone far beyond awkward television into something genuinely disturbing. Kimmel's face was flushed red, and his hands were gesticulating wildly as he lost all semblance of professional composure. "My qualification is that I don't pretend to be something I'm not," Kimmel snapped. "I don't use my platform to mislead people into thinking I'm some kind of intellectual authority." "Mislead people?" Stiller was incredulous now. "By encouraging civic engagement? By asking people to think critically about the world around them? What exactly is misleading about that? Because you don't know what you're talking about." Kimmel exploded, his voice echoing through the studio. "You read a few articles, maybe talked to some people, and suddenly you think you're qualified to influence public opinion on complex geopolitical issues." The accusation hung in the air like toxic smoke. Stiller's face went through a series of expressions: shock, hurt, and finally, cold anger. "You know what, Jimmy? I think I understand what this is really about. This isn't about political commentary or celebrity responsibility. This is about you feeling threatened." "Threatened? By what?" Kimmel laughed, but it was a harsh, brittle sound that fooled no one. "By the fact that people actually listen when I speak," Stiller replied, his voice gaining strength with each word. "By the fact that I can have a meaningful conversation about important issues without reducing everything to a punchline. By the fact that maybe, just maybe, entertainment doesn't have to be mindless to be valuable." The words hit their target with surgical precision. Kimmel's face contorted with rage, and for a moment it looked like he might physically lunge at his guest. Instead, he jabbed his finger toward Stiller with venomous intensity. "You arrogant piece of work," Kimmel snarled, abandoning any pretense of professionalism. "You think you're better than everyone else because you went to college and read some books? Newsflash, Ben? Nobody cares about your opinions as much as you think they do." The studio had become a powder keg, and Stiller was the spark that would ignite it completely. "Nobody cares about my opinions?" Stiller's voice was deadly quiet, the kind of calm that experienced observers knew meant someone had reached their absolute limit. "You know what, Jimmy? You're right about one thing. This conversation is over." But Kimmel, drunk on his own aggression and seemingly oblivious to how badly he was coming across, couldn't resist one final jab. Running away? That's typical. Make your grand statements and then bolt when someone calls you on your nonsense. That was the moment everything exploded. Stiller whipped around to face Kimmel directly. His composure finally shattered completely. Running away? You ambush me on your show, insult my intelligence, question my right to have opinions, and then act like I'm the problem? You're not a comedian anymore, Jimmy. You're just a bully with a platform. The words rang through the studio, with the force of a declaration. Several audience members actually gasped audibly. Kimmel's face cycled through shock, rage, and something that might have been recognition of how far he'd fallen. "How dare you?" Kimmel started, but Stiller cut him off with a gesture that was both dismissive and final. "No, Jimmy, how dare you? I came here tonight to talk about my work, to entertain your audience, to be a good guest. Instead, you decided to make me your personal punching bag for whatever issues you're dealing with." Stiller's voice carried across the studio with perfect clarity, ensuring every word was captured by the microphones. "This isn't late-night television. This is a public humiliation attempt, and I won't be part of it." Kimmel tried to regain control of the situation, his host instincts finally kicking in far too late. "Ben, come on, let's just what? Pretend this didn't happen? Pretend you didn't spend the last 10 minutes trying to tear me down on national television for having the audacity to care about the world around me?" Stiller was moving toward the edge of the interview area now, clearly preparing to leave. "You know what the real problem is here, Jimmy? It's not that I have political opinions. It's that you've forgotten what basic human decency looks like." The studio fell into stunned silence. Even the camera operators had stopped their usual subtle movements, frozen by the raw intensity of the moment. Kimmel stood there, mouth slightly open, looking like a man who had just realized he'd burned down his own house. Stiller removed his wireless microphone pack and placed it deliberately on the interview table. "To your audience," he said, looking directly into the main camera, "I apologize that you had to witness this. You deserve better entertainment than watching someone get ambushed and insulted for having opinions." Then he turned back to Kimmel one final time. "And Jimmy, maybe think about whether this is really the kind of host you want to be. Because what I saw tonight wasn't comedy. It wasn't even good television. It was just sad." With that, Stiller walked off the set with dignity intact, leaving Kimmel standing alone in front of a studio audience that was buzzing with uncomfortable murmurs. The host looked around desperately, clearly searching for something to say that might salvage the situation. But the damage was catastrophic and complete. "We'll be right back," Kimmel mumbled into his microphone, but the words came out weak and unconvincing. As the show cut to commercial, cameras caught him slumping into his chair, head in his hands, finally seeming to grasp the magnitude of his professional suicide. The incident spread across social media within minutes, with clips of the confrontation going viral immediately. Viewers were overwhelmingly supportive of Stiller's dignified response and harshly critical of Kimmel's unprofessional behavior. The hashtag #BenStillerDeserves Better began trending within the hour, while Jimmy Kimmel apologize followed shortly after. By the next morning, major entertainment outlets were running the story as their lead item, with media analysts calling it one of the most shocking examples of host misconduct in late-night television history. The confrontation became a defining moment about respect, professionalism, and the responsibility that comes with having a platform, ultimately serving as a stark reminder that celebrity status doesn't excuse basic human decency.